Hi, good night. This is Lyma Dunbar right here on Caribbean Straight Talk. Our co-host, Mr. George Busu, is still away on location, but we've got to do what we've got to do. As always, we have a packed show for you tonight, and I'm just going to give you a little heads up on who it is. It's none other than Mr. Wayne Golden. That wasn't much of a heads up, I know, but still, you know how we roll here. And Mr. Wayne Golden is an attorney, but he also is the member or one of the members appointed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica. And you got to know there are at least 28 members on this team. And so tonight we're going to talk about the Jamaican Diaspora Council and a little bit about immigration and how it stands within not just Florida, but also within the United States as it pertains to our Caribbean nationals. So without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Wayne Golden. Hi, Mr. Golden.
Good evening, ladies. How are you?
Fine, doing fine. And I should say happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Same to you. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much. So let's jump in because I got a lot of questions for you, okay? And the first is in the 70s, it is my understanding that many Jamaicans from that era credited the Manley regime with bringing to life social programs that changed their lives for the better. To the best of your knowledge, are those programs still in existence in enhanced versions?
Well, it's sort of a touchy subject for some people because a lot of people did not appreciate at the time the programs that were put in place. For example, free education up until the university level, free lunches for children in schools, um, you know, uh, adult education to educate the population, of course, that was prevented from getting a good education or even a primary school education. And some of these policies, because of the politics of the time, people were saying, well, it's traits of communism and socialism. Well, of course, we know quite different today where we stand 40 something years later, where we're seeing the full benefits of some of those programs because a lot of Jamaicans were able to take advantage of those opportunities and now are giving service not only to their country but right across the world. These programs still continue because Jamaica, of course, it was considered a third world country years ago. And I think now we're up to what is called a second world country. And there are advantages and disadvantages to that in terms of we cannot get the sort of help that we used to get as a third world country from some of the NGOs and all the different agencies
Mm-hmm.
that were in place to help third world countries. So we're in this kind of space where we're trying to make our own way. We're trying to put policies in place that will enhance opportunities for the entire population. So yes, there are certain policies from the 70s that are still in place, although some of them have been cut back because of economic constraints.
It's interesting that Manly, it seems, was a little bit way ahead of his time compared to, I mean, other countries back then. And it's also interesting to see what they consider socialism. I mean, I have to juxtapose it with what's happening in this country here with regards to how the Republicans see certain programs like Social Security. It's interesting because they have family members that collect Social Security, but for them, they want to cut this program because it's considered socialism. But then you have the other side that might think differently. So again, it's nice to see how you could juxtapose both.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and that Manley definitely was ahead of his time, you know?
yeah,
Good.
because back in those days, he was talking about equal pay for women. When you look at the United States, you have the Little Better Act, which really put that into
Yes.
legislation to make sure women are paid equally. Uh,
Mhm.
these are some of the programs that, but because of politics, the politics of the world at that time, especially in the Western Hemisphere, where there was a Monroe Doctrine, which basically said no form of communism should pass beyond a certain date line coming into the Western Hemisphere, and they would do everything they can to prevent that. And Jamaica was a victim of the politics of the time, and they're still trying to recover. But they're resilient people, and as you said, way ahead of the time.
Mhm.
And years later, we're looking back and saying, "Wow, these things, these concepts." Would have brought the country so much further if it wasn't the interference of the politics of the time.
But you know, let me use Trinidad and Tobago as an example. Regime after regime, every time the regime changes, whether it's UNC, NAR, PNM, whatever, they seem to want to dismantle certain things that the previous regime had put in place because I guess it's an ego thing, you know. But it's interesting again, and I use that word frequently during our conversation, that this is one of the some of his programs remain even in spite of the politics.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've recognized the benefits of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think over the years, the politics has matured to a level where I think they understand that Jamaica has to look out for its own interest. But while
Mm-hmm.
doing that, you have to be aware of your strengths
Mm-hmm.
and your weaknesses and the powers that are out there that can wreck your country or improve your country. So you have to learn to sort of walk between the raindrops. And that's why it's so important that the folks who are living outside of Jamaica, some by choice, some not by choice, um, contribute to the growth and development of
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica with best practices that they're learning wherever they are in the world, but knowing that they have sort of a obligation to make sure that the country benefits from their newly learned knowledge and skills, and wherever they're living also benefit from what they bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
uh, from the social issues to the political issues to how you grew up back in Jamaica.
Okay. I interviewed you in 2018, I believe, and you referred to some lobbying that you were engaged in at that time with regards to immigration concerns that affect us as Caribbean people. That was in 2018. Today, fast forward, we're in 2022. Has there been any progress from then till now?
Well, the progress is that we've had a change of administration here in the United States. And some of the programs that we were so concerned about that was being implemented by the previous administration, the new incoming administration at the time had made some promises that they would roll back immediately some of the ill effect programs that were put in place. For example, persons who were coming to the United States as permanent residents had to now qualify both by education, financial status, and social status. Under the previous administration, they had actually put that in place, and they're saying their point was, oh, we're trying to make sure people coming in the country are not going to be dependents of the government. Of course, if they looked at the statistics, they would have seen that immigrants are the one that contribute to the growth and development of the United States from day one, and that has not changed. Yes, you have issues here and there, but for the most part, immigrants are the ones who are responsible for making this country great, as we like to say. So putting those restrictions was of great concern to us. And what happened, the promises were kept with the new administration in terms of restoring discretion to the immigration courts, to some extent, restoring
Mm-hmm.
discretion to some of the government attorneys to make certain decisions. So I think the lobbying paid off, and there's still room to go because no matter what, the administration in place is going to be, implementing the laws as it concerns immigration, and we have to keep a vigil, and we have to let our people understand too that coming to the United States is not a right; it's a privilege, and that privilege can be curtailed based on what is perceived to be happening, whether they perceive that our people are coming here to do wrong things and not to build the country. So we also have a responsibility within our communities to make sure our people stay on the straight and narrow and understand that these rules that are in place needs to be followed.
Well, again, that's why it's so important to vote, because when we vote, we put in place the people that we want to take care of our interests or to look out for our interests. And every election cycle we go through the same thing over and over again, trying to raise people's awareness. However, hopefully one day we wouldn't have to beat that drum so many times, but We are going to take a break, and when we return, we will return with Mr. Wayne Golden, attorney, immigration attorney, and also a member of the Diaspora, Jamaican Diaspora Council.
iTunes Entertainment Magazine, where the focus is to bring information and entertainment wrapped in a little something extra that is pertinent and relative to all of us, regardless of culture. Our features aim at catering somewhat to the curiosity in all of us, whether it be business, entertainment, health and wellness, immigration, our youth, and more. So please visit our website at www.itunesentertainmentmagazine.com or itunesentmagazine.com. Also inviting you to check us out on IG and Twitter at itunesentmag.
Zep Bolai Lawrence, realtor and property stager with a lake known as the Fuchsia Realty Group. You can give her a call at 321-689-3467. Send a fax at 321-445-6054. Email zepbl9@gmail.com. Once again, Zep Bolai Lawrence for all your realtor and property staging needs. And we are back right here on Caribbean Street Talk with none other than Mr. Wayne Golden. Now, if you live in Orlando, you know that name. Shoot. If you live in Central Florida, you know that name. Especially if you are a Jamaican, you better know that name. All right, I had to show you a little joke here and there. However, we return with Mr. Wayne Golden. So, Mr. Golden?
Yes, glad to be back.
You're here throwing some jokes at you?
Yes, man, no problem.
No problem. Your practice here in Orlando is in the field of immigration law. What are your concerns with the current state of immigration affairs over the past 5 or 6 years? Now, in the previous question, we did talk about the change in regime, of course, from the Trump regime to Biden, and they're working some things out to the kinks. But yet still, there are certain problems that remain. Are there not?
Yes, there is. And just to clarify, my practice is not only in immigration. It's just that I'm probably best known for my work in immigration. But, my practice is interconnected. I do some criminal work, do some civil work also. But the main thing about my practice is that I cater 95% of my clientele is Caribbean. And the issues that they have all intertwined, because somebody might end up with a criminal issue that leads to an immigration issue, that leads to a civil issue or a family issue. So understanding the needs of my community is so important because I'm a part of my community. You'll see me in the supermarket, you'll see me in the gas station, you'll see me in a little corner store, you'll see me at the mechanic shop. And it's important to stay in touch with those persons that you service because you will have a greater understanding of what their needs and concerns are. Now, you asked about, in terms of immigration, what we're seeing out and what we're most concerned about. What we're most concerned about is still, first and foremost, those children who are caught up in the system who cannot get their status adjusted because they were brought here at an early age, not by their choice, and they're known as dreamers. And these children, I think, thankfully to President Obama, he had instituted a program where they could actually come out of the shadows. They could move beyond high school. They could go to college. They could get jobs and all of that. But their lives are on hold. And it's been on hold for the last 20 years at least. It's something that's being discussed between different administrations. And every time there seems to be some progress, there is some lawsuit that's filed that has to be fought. And right now, the status of what we call the DACA, the early childhood arrival children here who are in this program, is really uncertain still because recently a judge ruled, or the Supreme Court ruled, that although DACA is not dead per se, it's still continuing for some of those people already enrolled. There'll be no new enrollment. And they've punted the ball back to Congress to make law, to change the laws, to make sure that these children's legal immigration position are preserved through the law. And that's my major concern because, children are the future and it's very stressful. And to get into DACA, it's not 1, 2, 3. They have to qualify. They have to have
But wait a second. What is the difference between the temporary protected status and DACA? It's not the same, right?
No, it's not the same. Temporary protected status comes about when a country finds itself in turmoil, whether by natural events or political events, to the point where the government of the United States feel that those people who are outside of a country deserve protection under the laws and are not going to be sent back. They might not have status in the United States. They might be here without paperwork. But because of the temporary protective status, they're allowed to stay here and work and go to school. But they have to still qualify because you have, first and foremost, and I'll emphasize this, you have to have a clean record, no criminal record in your background or anything like that to even qualify. But that's what temporary protective status is. It's basically a protection for those people who have disaster in your country, whether it's man-made or natural.
And
it has to be
a country that falls under that would be Haiti.
Yes, right now it does. And they fought for that for years under the different happenings in Haiti, natural and otherwise, whether it was political, and finally got it. But especially now with all the turmoil that's going on. But it's not forever. You know, it expires and it has to be re-opted depending on the current conditions in the country. And there are many other countries that are still under TPS. So, you know, some people might fall into both categories, DACA and TPS. But TPS is one of those things that it goes with what's happening on the ground in the country. And it's not 1, 2, 3. It's not easy to designate a country.
What a lot of us continue to look at is the fact that even after all these years, they still cannot come up with a law that they all or most of them can agree on with regards to immigration and common sense immigration, the same way like common sense gun laws. It's like pulling teeth, you know, and it's like this country was built on immigration or immigrants, but you feel hopeless after a while, you know?
Well, you know, you have to go back and look at history. And history is not far if you go back. I mean, the happenings, you know, it's not a drastic change. Immigration has always been that low-hanging fruit, or immigrants have been always the easiest people to victimize with politics, you know, to score political points. It happened with the Chinese, it happened with the Japanese, happened with Europeans, it happened with Jews, you know. So at different stages in this country, different immigrants have seen where they have been put at the bottom of the totem pole and have been put through the rigors of getting the laws changed, because immigration in this country is supposed to be about family reunification. And there were several legal cases over the years fought. And that's how you have to keep at it. You can't just stop. And I'll tell you, most of the changes that you have in immigration laws have come about because of Caribbean people fighting cases in court. And it's significant because the laws that we look for Congress to enact are one thing, but when you get into a courtroom fighting an immigration case, the judge can rule one way or the other, depending on the argument presented and the interpretation of the law. And I'll dare say Caribbean people have been in the courts fighting for years to get some of these changes done.
So is there, I mean, now that we kind of like on the topic, is there one particular case that comes to mind that can like set precedents with regards to?
Well, there are several, but one important one was a person being held in detention in a local jail, and you know, after he was released, he was there indefinitely before immigration came to pick him up. Now that person eventually sued. That person, I think, was of Trinidadian background, as a matter of fact, and sued. And what eventually happened was won the case, and now immigration, if they're coming to get you from a local jail, they have to come within 48 hours. If they don't come within 48 hours, that jail is supposed to release that person regardless of what immigration says. So, you know, these are some of the small changes that make big differences in people's lives. And, but for somebody who's saying, you know, this was wrong, you held me almost indefinitely under these circumstances. So that's just one example. There are hundreds of
Hundreds
examples.
more. I like to hear kind of like real talk in the sense that I wanted to hear an example that kind of like had me thinking, okay, this has happened, this can happen, you know, precedents, like they say. So I have one more question, and then we're gonna go into a break. And that question is, what, in your estimation, are some of the concerns that affect all Caribbean people within the diaspora, not just immigration? But if that's the primary one, then yeah, we'll go with that. But what, in your estimation, are some of the concerns that affect all Caribbean people within the diaspora?
Well, I would think the most common one would be your qualifications. You know, coming into a new country
Mm-hmm.
with prior qualifications from where you were born and where you got educated. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people find it difficult to transition and to assimilate, and you almost have to start over. For example, if you had a college degree from the University of the West Indies, when you come here, it's not held in the same high esteem. But it
Mm-hmm.
all depends because, for example, if you're a doctor or a nurse or a teacher coming into the country, they look at you a little differently. As a matter of fact, they're actively recruiting these types of professionals, and they've made provisions for them to get accredited in this country. So that's one of the big concerns, I think, in our community about starting over. How do you start over? How do you make sure you can achieve success and take advantage of what's here if
Mm-hmm.
you have already gone through all this already? The other concern, major concern that I have for our Caribbean community is how many people are actually becoming U.S. citizens once they
Yeah,
qualify.
I kind of figured you would say that.
Yeah, that's a big pet peeve of mine. We've been pushing for years to
Mm-hmm.
make sure people do that because it cements your place in this country. You have the right to vote. You can get certain jobs. You know, it changes your status tremendously. You can't get deported unless you got your citizenship through fraud or something like that. But for those people who are saying, "Well, I'm going to go back home. I don't need," I've heard people say that for 30 years and are still here.
And they're
And
still
when
here.
election time comes around, they can't vote. They have the biggest voice, but they can't vote.
I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny, you know. And I was talking to my sisters recently about Brooklyn. There's a certain area in Brooklyn that I feel it's like everybody's in this bubble. They survive, they live, they go to school, they work in this bubble. And many of them are not straight. Okay. But for some reason, it's difficult to get them to connect the dots between, okay, you've been here this long. Why don't you try and see if you could get straight by, becoming a citizen? It's like they don't seem to understand. Mr. Golden, do you get kind of like tired sometimes fighting the fight?
No, no, it's a passion. I'm an immigrant myself, and sometimes it's easy to look at people and say, "Why don't you do this?" But sometimes people are in difficult situations that they can't solve without an
Mhm.
attorney, or sometimes they try and do it themselves and they end up, making it worse. So education is part of what I try and do to
Mhm.
to bring our people to the light, so to speak. Because to become a citizen, you first have to become a permanent resident. To become a permanent resident, you have to be able to be sponsored. And it's not everybody that can be sponsored can stay in the United States to get their papers. If they've been here for over a certain amount of time, they would have to go back to their home country. Once they go back to their home country, they might get stuck because they're banned from coming back in. So it's a complicated field. And one of the things that I try and do, as I said, is to educate people because you have so many people out there who dabble in immigration who are not attorneys, who are not trained in the area. They say they can fill out this form for you, fill out that form. And oftentimes they charge the people more than the lawyers charge. And oftentimes they put them in a situation that cannot be solved because
Mhm.
they might have misstated something on the application and put people in dire straits. And there are some people who can get their benefits, but because they're afraid of coming out of the shadows, there are a lot of people that you and I know that we think have everything straight. You know, they're straight, as we call it. They have all their paperwork. And they have a house, they have cars, they have good job and all that. And sometimes you dig deep enough, you'll realize that they don't have anything. So the noose is getting tighter because of how technology is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try and educate people, say, first thing you need to do is go and sit and speak with an attorney, do a consultation, so
Mm-hmm.
that at least you have a picture of what the road is ahead. If it's
Yes.
bad, it's bad. You get the confirmation. If there's a light, there's a light. But don't sit in this constant state of turmoil within yourself, because it will drive you crazy.
It will
You know,
drive
imagine
you.
being here for 30, 40 years and not having your documents and knowing that the doors are slowly closing on you.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right about that. Check, check, check. You're right about that. We're going to take a break. We will return on the other side with Mr. Wayne Golden. Stay tuned.
Val Branch Duncan, Realtor with North Star First Properties. Whether it's buying or selling, Val can help, and she is certified to assist you in Jamaica, Grenada, Guyana, Barbados, Bahamas, and Trinidad and Tobago. Please call Val Branch Duncan, where V stands for valuable, A, attentive, L, loyal. Please give her a call at 321-303-9345 or 407-844-8622.
And we are back. This is Lyma Dunbar with Caribbean Straight Talk. I need to let you know that our other host, Mr. George Boussoum, is still on location and he will be back soon. In the meantime, we are here fighting the fight, keeping it live. Yeah, I know I'm full of it sometimes. I can't help it sometimes. This evening's guest is Mr. Wayne Golden. And Mr. Golden is an attorney here in Central Florida, but he's also a member that was appointed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica. And there are 28 members, and Mr. Golden is one of them. Mr. Golden.
Yes, ma'am.
Next question. Simple request. I've asked you this before, but I needed to have a definition of the term diaspora for listeners that may think it's a soup or something. They just don't know what it means. Can you define diaspora, please?
Well, it's very simple. It's just it came, I think, from the Jewish tradition, and it describes those people who are living outside of the country of their birth, and not only them but their descendants. Mm-hmm. So, if you were born in another country and you have moved somewhere else, you're part of that country's diaspora. And Jamaica's diaspora can be found in nearly every country in the world. You know, it's amazing, this small country, but our people are very adventurous, to say the least. Just like most Caribbean countries, you go where you perceive opportunity is. And sometimes people go for temporary stay and they end up being there permanently. And they begin to have children and offsprings and stuff like that. Those offsprings are also considered diasporans, Jamaican diasporans.
Okay, guys. So now you all know what diaspora means. So let's continue with the next question. How long has the Jamaican Diaspora Council been in existence, and what led you to begin working with them?
Well, it morphed, really. The Jamaica Diaspora Advisory Board started back in 2007, actually. and 2004. And it was established as an advisory body to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade.
Mhm.
And the board members were required to liaise with their community-based groups wherever they lived, alumni associations, influential individuals in their respective country to obtain a clear understanding of the issues, interests, concerns within the Jamaican community. And in addition, they were required to brief your respective community where you are from about the areas of development in Jamaica. And the board at that time, when it was initiated, consisted of individuals who were elected by their peers. The first board was actually appointed because that was the beginning. But then it moved to an elective process where folks within the area would vote for the persons they thought would best fulfill this role. Now, initially it started with 7 members, 2 in England, 2 in Canada, and 3 from the United States. And these persons represent different areas. And I shouldn't use the word represent, really. They liaison with these persons in these different areas and to the government directly in Jamaica, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And eventually, a lot of work was done to establish contacts, to establish, valuable best practices that we could transfer to Jamaica. Projects were started, all kind of things. But it was a way of the government of Jamaica to keep connected to Jamaicans who were abroad through a body. And eventually what happened in 2019, this body morphed into the council, which was now made up of 28 members right across the world. It was expanded right across the world. You still had the 7 elected members, plus, of course, you had 21 other members who were there because of their own specialities. So we have people in China, we have people in Japan, we have people in Canada, UK, United States, in Africa, who are all sitting on this council and who are all advising the minister or Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I myself, because I had served 2 terms on the advisory board, previous advisory board, and you're term limited for two terms of 2 years each.
Okay.
But what happened, the minister has the authority to appoint 1 person to the board. And they asked me if I would join the board as an advisor to the minister, and which I did. And that the council has a 3-year term, and the first 3-year term is going to be completed this December. So we're going to be having new elections for new members, and people can put themselves forward. They can be nominated. There's an elections process. People have to register to be elected, or register to vote, I should say. And the great thing about this, it's run on an honor system also, although we have checks and balances. If you are Jamaican in the diaspora in that particular area, you are able to vote. You have to get online and register. And also, the most important part, I think, is that there is also a youth component.
Okay.
Youth Advisory Council, made up of Jamaican diaspora youths from all over the world. And they also are in the same sort of process. They also sit on the bigger council. So the future is the youth, of course, obviously.
Yes.
And provisions are being made to make sure that these youth are brought in. And as I said, they don't have to be born in Jamaica. They just have to have Jamaican
They
heritage.
just have to have that Jamaican blood running through them.
Yes.
So okay, I'm getting a visual here. So let me just, as far as my understanding of it, back in 2004, it was the advisory board, which morphed into the council.
Right.
All
Exactly.
right. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And everything is under the umbrella of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica.
Yes. And, there is an understanding of what the agenda is in terms of the global Jamaica Diaspora Council.
Mhm.
And the agenda really is to strengthen the mechanism responsible for enhancing diaspora engagement with the Jamaican government and the Jamaican people, and to expand its reach, and participation globally. The further need to align all the goals and pillars and focuses that the Jamaican government, no matter which party is running the government, has for Jamaica, has been outlined in what we call a national diaspora policy,
Uh-huh.
which we as members of the board and the council help to form and shape. And this is going to be the official policy where you can pick up a book, really, pick up the policy and look and see what is the intention, how does the Jamaican government intend to engage its diaspora. So
So
that
this
policy
is
will become part of law, so to speak.
so this is one of the the one of the goals of the Diaspora Council.
Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
it's collaboration, and
Mhm.
it's the opportunity for our mouths to meet their ears, so to speak, and accountability, because a lot of communities abroad have helped their countries, and they still do it without asking for anything in return. But this gives us an opportunity to participate in policy making, especially policies that will affect those who live outside the country, and as I said, bring best practices, expose best practices, and to learn how the government actually works in Jamaica, because that's another thing. A lot of people have come out of Jamaica or their countries and they don't even know how the government functions, or what are the do's and don'ts and the different things that are in place already, because sometimes we think we have the solution to a problem when
Yeah.
the solution is already there on the ground. We just have to fill the gaps.
But a question that has been bubbling in me, and I reached out to you recently. It seems to me as though the Jamaican Diaspora Council, like Jamaicans, are they're the only Caribbean country that seems to have something like this going on. To the best of your knowledge, is there any other country in the Caribbean that has something similar?
Well, not formal. There's nothing formal yet. I think several Caribbean countries are moving towards that.
Mhm.
I think Grenada is one of those countries that
Mhm.
has made a positive step to establish a framework
Mhm.
for its diasporans to officially participate
Mhm.
with the country and its policies. I know there are informal settings. Some countries have associations in different countries, and they will have contacts within the different government entities, whether the ministries or whatever. But as far as something official,
Nothing.
something, yeah, a policy that's in place, Jamaica has been heads up leading
Okay,
in
so
this
in
area.
other words, you guys got it going on, and I got to give you all props because I attended one of the events that y'all did about maybe 5 years ago, give or take a year or two. And I was really impressed because the list of concerns that y'all address when you'll have one of these events where it was brought here to Orlando, and I was really impressed by everything that was done. So I say again, hats off to the Jamaican Diaspora Council, and hopefully Trinidad will be up there one day. Hopefully.
Well, I think one of the great things too is that we get to liaison with all our missions
Uh-huh.
across the world, and that influence is with the missions all engage with each other. And I think Trinidad, Barbados, Grenada, all of these folks are looking at this as an option for their diasporans.
Yeah.
And what we do also is every 2 years,
Mhm.
excepting for COVID, we had to do it virtually. We do have like a homecoming diaspora conference
Mhm.
in Jamaica where diasporans from all over the world travel back to Jamaica to talk, to discuss issues, to come up with solutions.
Mhm.
And on the off years, we have it in the individual countries. We
Mhm.
had one here in the United States. We called it a Diaspora Leadership Conference up in Georgia a couple of years ago. And so these are the kinds of engagement, positive engagement that we try to get to. Because, Problems are everywhere. You're going to find problems, no
True.
matter how perfect you think your country is. But the idea is get off your laurels, get off your butt, participate. You can
Let's
do
let's
some small
let's
thing.
yeah, let's approach it as a collective. Get it done.
Absolutely.
Question. Jamaica is a CARICOM member state. Is there any overlap from the services they provide and that of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council?
No, it's totally different.
Totally separate.
As CARICOM nations, that's governmental, political. We are civil, and our thing is voluntary. That's the thing people got to understand. You know, you sit on this council, but it's voluntary. I sat on the board for a couple of terms. It's voluntary. You spend money out of your own pocket to enhance what you're
Ouch.
doing.
Really?
So there is no budget for you. There is no. It's just a straight love for your country and wanting to
Really?
give back. And I'm very grateful for what I received from Jamaica. I left Jamaica at 17 years old, right after high school. But that foundation I got has helped to propel me and carry me to where I am today. So I feel that obligation to give back. And it's not a matter of cost or having money or no money, because that's not the determining factor. There are small things you can do that have a big impact on a country. And I am grateful for what I received. So me, myself, my friends, family, who are all a part of this diaspora, we recruited even people from other countries. You know, I want to mention especially Sam and Guinette from Guyana, who has been tremendous in helping us organize over the years. Non-Jamaicans like Ali Braswell,
Yes.
people like that who gave up their time freely to help us organize and to get our things straight so we can present
Sandra
a cohesive.
Patney.
Yes, Sandra Fatney, all of these people that people probably thought, oh, these people are getting paid. They're consultants. No, not a single dollar. It costs them, and sometimes people don't want to be around me too much because I volunteer them for a lot of stuff.
I need to stay far away from you then. We're going to take a small break, and when we return, we will return with Mr. Wayne Golden.
Women of Culture 365 presents Glow, a greater level of wellness, with your host, Coach Mia Ullman, founder of Women of Culture 365 and Glow. Along with me are my co-hosts, Coach Sophie G, bringing you words of wisdom. Coach Dawn Hewitt shows how to treat the whole body. And Coach Lady Q, bringing you spiritual wellness. Join us as we go Facebook Live at Glow 365 TV show and on YouTube at Official Women of Culture, culture spelled with a K, every second Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. A conversation you do not want to miss. Also, visit us online at womenofculture.com. Zep Bolai Lawrence, realtor and property stager with a lake known as Fuchsia Lay Realty Group. You can give her a call at 321-689-3467. Send a fax at 321-445-6054. Email zepbl9@gmail.com. Once again, Zep Bolai Lawrence for all your realtor and property staging needs.
Yes.
We are back, and this is the last. We getting to the top of the hour, so this is. I got like two more questions for Mr. Golding.
Sure.
And the first one is the United States is separated into three sectors with regards to the Jamaican Diaspora Council. There's a Southern, Northeastern, and Midwest. What is the process for electing advisory board members? Is it done based on the sector that a candidate is vying for, or are there other factors including that?
Well, there are only 7 elected positions. The rest of positions are appointed. Now, the 3 regions in the United States are elected positions.
Okay.
As I said, folks who, it's a volunteer situation. So and it's a 3-year term. And 14 members of the council are elected from within 3 major locations, which contains the largest Jamaican population, namely the UK, the United States, and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And these elected members are your youth council members and your general global Jamaica Diaspora Council members. And the election process is carried out at the end of the 3-year term. And anybody can be nominated as a candidate, but there are certain criteria you have to meet, of course.
Yeah, let's hear the criteria.
Well, they have to make sure that you have a good background, of course. There's nothing in it about you have to have a college degree or a master's or a doctorate or anything like that. You have to be a person of ill repute, where your background has to be one of a reputable person, and that's basically it. You must be at least 21 years old. You must be a Jamaican or of Jamaican descent. You have never been a judge or otherwise declared bankrupt by any court or financial institution. You have no pending litigation proceedings against you, and you possess some expertise in one of the following areas: social, economic engagement and involvement, human exchanges, transfers, philanthropic initiatives, integration and reintegration, safety and security, governance, engagements of the diaspora youth, young adults, diaspora tourism, cultural exchanges, legislation and policy reform, and data and information. And you must be properly resided in the United States and Canada and the United Kingdom. Properly resided meaning you have good legal status. So that means if you got to travel from point A to point B, you won't be worried about that.
Nothing to hold you back. They ain't gonna deport you.
Yeah. So, and for all those people who are interested in running for the position, please make sure you understand what this position is about. It's a very, very important role that you're going to take up that is going to require a lot of time and dedication. It's not just about a title and appearing at what we call suit and gown events. This is work, and you need to know that you have the time to dedicate to 3 years of commitment to this type of work, volunteer work, and also that you understand in totality what the qualifications are. Because you can be nominated, and you found not to be qualified, you won't stand for election. So we're encouraging people, if you feel that you fill this role, or if you want to learn more about it, you can go on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade website for Jamaica, and you will be able to see the full ambit about the council, membership, election process, frequently asked questions, and if all fails, I'm always available to talk to folks. I don't mind talking to people about it, but be very serious about this. This is not for show, because you are an ambassador unofficially for your country, regardless if you have this position or if you're just a member of your community, because what you do reflects on a whole country.
On the whole country. A lot of information. Most of it is good. I had to say most of it because when we talked a little bit about the immigration concerns and let's be real, it's not something to smile about, and I hope that it gets better. But with due diligence and everybody getting involved, rolling up their sleeves, it can happen one day soon. Mr. Golding, thank you so much for being a guest on Caribbean Straight Talk. We really appreciated having you on with us today. Learned a lot of stuff about the Jamaican Diaspora Council and your role with the council, as well as the part the council itself has to play.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do spreading information, because I know it's not for the paycheck,
That was a good one. No, it's not.
So take care. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. There you go. Caribbean Straight Talk at its best. Remember, our co-host, Mr. George Busson, will join us in upcoming shows. In the meantime, as I said earlier on, he is on location. My name is Lyma Dunbar, producer Miss Mia Allman in the background, and we will be saying good night.
Val Branch Duncan, Realtor with North Star First Properties. Whether it's buying or selling, Val can help, and she is certified to assist you in Jamaica, Grenada, Guyana, Barbados, Bahamas, and Trinidad and Tobago. Please call Val Branch Duncan, where V stands for valuable, A, attentive, L, loyal. Please give her a call at 321-303-9345 or 407-844-8622.